My wife's rose garden was the talk of the neighborhood, but not for the reasons you'd think. It wasn't just the vibrant reds and pinks that made people stop and stare. It was the audacity of planting it without permission from the so-called homeowners association. Except, here's the kicker, our neighborhood doesn't even have an HOA. We'd moved to Willow Creek, a sleepy suburb outside Raleigh, North Carolina, 6 months ago. It was the kind of place where kids rode bikes until dark and neighbors waved from their porches. I'm Jake, a freelance graphic designer who works from home, and my wife, Sarah, is a botanist with a knack for turning barren patches of dirt into Eden. Our little ranch-style house was our fresh start after years in the city, a place to breathe, to grow roots, literally, in Sarah's case. The trouble started when a guy in a polo shirt, sporting a clipboard and a smug grin, knocked on our door one Saturday morning. He introduced himself as Carl, president of the Willow Creek HOA, and handed us a typed letter demanding we remove Sarah's garden for violating aesthetic regulations. I laughed it off, thinking it was a prank. We checked the deed, no HOA existed, but Carl's eyes didn't have that prankster twinkle. They were cold, like he'd already decided we were the enemy. Sarah, bless her, tried to reason with him. Carl, there's no HOA here. I've got the paperwork to prove it. She's got this calm, professor-like way of talking that usually disarms people. Not Carl. He just smirked and said, "You'll hear from us again?" That was the first red flag, but we brushed it off. People get weird about their lawns, right? We figured he was just some control freak with too much time on his hands. Little did we know, Carl wasn't just a busybody, he was the ringleader of a scam that would turn our quiet life into a circus. The next week, the letters started piling up. Every other day, a new one showed up in our mailbox, printed on fake letterhead with Willow Creek HOA in bold Comic Sans. They cited ridiculous violations. Our mailbox was too blue, our grass was 0.3 inches too tall, and Sarah's roses were an unauthorized color palette. Each letter demanded a fine, starting at $50 and climbing to $200. I posted about it on Nextdoor, expecting a few chuckles from neighbors. Instead, the thread blew up. Turns out, half the block had been getting similar letters. Old Mrs. Jenkins said she'd paid $300 to avoid legal action over her bird bath. Mr. Patel, who ran the corner store, got hit with a $500 fine for his kid's basketball hoop. People were pissed, but nobody knew who was behind it. Carl, the only face we could pin to this mess, was suddenly nowhere to be found. Then things got weirder. One night, I caught a guy in a black hoodie spray painting pay up on our driveway. Sarah called the cops, but by the time they showed up, the guy was gone. The officer, a tired-looking guy named Rodriguez, took our statement inside. We've had complaints about this fake HOA nonsense for weeks. No leads, though. These guys are ghosts. Ghosts with a vendetta, apparently. The next morning, our tires were slashed. Sarah was shaken but stubborn. "I'm not ripping out my roses." "Jake," she said, her jaw set. "This is our home." I admired her fire, but I was starting to lose sleep. Whoever these people were, they weren't playing around. Enter the twist, our neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, a sweet 70-year-old widow who baked us cookies when we moved in. She came over one afternoon, looking nervous, and whispered, "Jake, I need to tell you something." Turns out she'd overheard Carl at the local diner, bragging about teaching the newbies a lesson. But here's the bombshell: Carl wasn't working alone. He was part of a crew running a fake HOA racket across 3 counties, extorting homeowners for thousands. Mrs. Callahan had a friend in the county clerk's office who dug up records linking Carl to a shady LLC called Community Standards, Inc. The kicker: they weren't just sending letters, they were hiring muscle to intimidate people into paying. Mrs. Callahan's voice trembled as she handed me a grainy photo she'd snapped of Carl meeting with two guys in tactical vests. "I think they're coming for Sarah," she said. My stomach dropped. The conflict escalated faster than a summer storm. By now, the neighborhood was on edge. People stopped mowing their lawns, half out of defiance, half out of fear they'd be fined for incorrect blade length. The next-door thread had turned into a war zone, with neighbors split between those who wanted to fight back and those too scared to cross Carl's crew. Sarah and I started organizing. We held a meeting in our backyard where 20 neighbors showed up, clutching their fake violation notices. Mr. Patel brought coffee. Mrs. Jenkins brought rage. "I'm not paying another dime to these crooks," she snapped, waving her cane. We agreed to pool resources, hire a lawyer, and expose this scam. But Carl's crew was one step ahead. The following Friday, I got a text from an unknown number: "Remove the garden by midnight, or we come for Sarah." My blood ran cold. Sarah laughed it off, saying, "What? Are they going to kidnap me over roses?" But I wasn't so sure. I installed a Ring camera and started sleeping with a baseball bat by the bed. The neighborhood felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for the next shoe to drop. And drop it did. That Sunday, I was watering the lawn when a black van roared into the cul-de-sac. Three guys in tactical gear, with HOA stitched on their vests, jumped out. They looked like they'd stepped out of a bad action movie sunglasses. Buzz cuts. The works. One of them pointed at Sarah, who was pruning her roses, and shouted, You're coming with us," before I could react. They grabbed her, or so they thought. The woman they'd nabbed wasn't Sarah, it was her friend, Lena, who'd been staying with us for the weekend. Lena, who I'd always thought was just a quiet plant nerd like Sarah, turned out to be something else entirely: a CIA field agent on leave. The cul-de-sac erupted into chaos. Lena didn't scream or flail like they expected. Instead, she moved like a panther, twisting out of their grip and landing a knee in one guy's gut. The second mercenary swung at her, but she dodged, grabbed his arm, and flipped him onto the pavement. The third guy hesitated, clearly not expecting a botanist to fight like Jason Bourne. Neighbors poured out of their houses, some filming, others yelling. I stood there, hose in hand, water pooling at my feet, too stunned to move. Lena had the first guy in a chokehold when the van's driver peeled out, leaving his buddies behind. "Call the cops," Lena shouted, her voice calm but commanding. Mrs. Callahan was already on the phone, while Mr. Patel ran over with a zip tie he'd found in his garage. The mercenaries were pinned, sweating and cursing, as Lena stood over them, her blazer torn but her composure intact. "You picked the wrong neighborhood," she said, dusting off her hands. That's when Carl showed up, screeching to a stop in his shiny SUV. He took one look at the scene: his hired goons on the ground, neighbors filming, and Lena staring him down, and tried to bolt. But Mrs. Jenkins, God bless her, blocked his path with her cane. "Not so fast, you little weasel," she barked. The crowd closed in, a wall of suburban fury. The cops arrived minutes later, sirens blaring. Officer Rodriguez, looking less tired and more amused, cuffed Carl and the mercenaries. Lena flashed a badge, muttered something about federal jurisdiction, and disappeared into the crowd to call her superiors. Sarah ran to me, her face pale but her eyes blazing. "I told you those roses were worth fighting for," she said, half laughing, half crying. The neighbors cheered, a raw, triumphant roar that echoed down the street. Someone, probably Mr. Patel, staked a sign in our lawn: "HOA Tyranny Ends Now," in bold, messy marker. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Carl's scam unraveled faster than a cheap sweater. The cops traced his LLC to a network of fake HOAs extorting homeowners across the state. He'd made over $50,000 before we stopped him, preying on people too scared or confused to fight back. The mercenaries, it turned out, were low-rent security contractors who thought they were enforcing legit HOA rules. They sang like canaries, spilling everything about Carl's operation. Lena, true to form, vanished after giving her statement, leaving us with a cryptic note, "Keep the roses blooming." Sarah framed it. The neighborhood changed overnight. People started talking again, not just waving from porches but throwing block parties, sharing beers and swapping stories. Mrs. Jenkins got her $300 back, and Mr. Patel's kid put his basketball hoop back up. The next-door thread became a victory lap, with neighbors posting memes of Carl's mugshot and videos of Lena's takedown. The story went viral, local news, then national, then a Reddit thread with 1 million upvotes. Fake HOA sends mercenaries. Gets owned by CIA agent was the headline of the year. Sarah's roses became a symbol of defiance, and people drove by just to take selfies with them. But the real change was deeper. We'd been strangers, caught up in our own lives, until Carl's scam forced us to stand together. It wasn't just about roses or fines, it was about fighting for what's yours, about community over control. Karma hit Carl hard. He's facing years in prison, and his name is Mud. As for us, we're planting a new garden bed this spring, and nobody's going to tell us what color the flowers can be. What do you think ever dealt with a bully like Carl? Share your story below. Let's keep the conversation going.